everyone. Jen Hatmaker here, your host of the For the Love podcast. You guys, welcome to the show. You're going to be glad you're here today. I know I say that a lot, but I really mean it. We are in the middle of a series called For the Love of Funny. And you know me. I just love comedy. I love humor. I love comics. I love comedians. I love funny people. I love funny writing. And so this whole series to me has just been delightful. We have a guest today who has, well, frankly, been working in various forms of entertainment for really like over 20 years. He was a successful touring musician with his own band for a while, a filmmaker, a stand-up comic who currently lives in Nashville, and he's just unique. You know, when it comes to comedy, anybody who is original just stands out when they find their own little lane, however weird or quirky, and they just run in it. That is maybe my favorite thing. And so we're so lucky. Gosh, I sure hope you're already following him because you're immediately going to be delightful. But we have Kevin James Thornton on today. So he would say he was pretty happy with the way his life was going as sort of a Renaissance guy in various areas of entertainment. But at the beginning of the pandemic, he kind of accidentally, frankly, tapped into a part of his life, sharing it on TikTok. You know, when we were all it was such a weird time and TikTok was on the rise and we were all isolated and on our phones a lot. And he started doing this bit on TikTok, talking about his life growing up, both kind of fundamental, like in a fundamentalist church, and also gay. And it just took off. Like you'll hear that he prefaces a lot of his stories with the phrase, in my super fundamentalist church. It's really hard to actually explain. And then he'll interject because it was the 90s. I cannot do it justice. It's so relatable to so many of us. There's like side splitting stories that a ton of us, gay or straight, obviously, could have had or did have happen in some shape or form if you kind of went to conservative church of any stripe growing up. And I don't know how to explain this, but he does this effect with this auto tune. It's so different and it's so funny and it makes me like laugh out loud. And so, although he and I did talk today, like even if you did not grow up in that background, if that's not your like childhood or whatever, his stuff is still absolutely hysterical. So you don't have to have had that sort of adolescence for any of it to be funny or to make sense to you. But he has found his sweet spot. So I mean, he really has. Like at this point, from the beginning of the pandemic to now, he now has over 2 million followers on TikTok and Instagram. And he is just kind of in full bloom, frankly. He is on a worldwide tour right now. Tons of it already sold out. He has just really stepped into his like gifts and his talents as a comic. He's been featured everywhere, like HuffPost and The Advocate, The New Yorker. He was featured in a piece on NPR's All Things Considered. And of course, his It Was the 90s tour is sold out all across Europe, US and Europe. I think you're going to if you don't already know him, you're just going to love him. And so I'm so happy. I got him on the show today. He's on tour. He was like, I have a hard stop at this time because I've got to catch a flight to my next place. I'm like, great, I'll squeeze you in wherever we can do it. And he's just delightful and warm and funny and charming. And you are going to love him if you don't already. So I'm so pleased to share my conversation with the absolutely wonderful Kevin James Thornton. Okay, Kevin, I've been excited to meet you because I've been following you and I just identify with you so much and you're so damn funny. And so thanks for saying yes to this little show, for being on the show.
For sure. I'm excited to be here.
You just told me you're in Tulsa about to check out. Did you have a show last night? How'd it go?
It went great. I had a show. Let's see. We were in Oklahoma City on Wednesday, Tulsa last night. I have the weekend off, and then I'm back out again on Monday.
Such is the life.
It's been wild. Yeah, it's been nonstop for a couple of years.
How did your set play in Oklahoma?
It went great. I didn't quite realize that this is where a lot of bases for giant conservative evangelical organizations are right here. So I learned that last night, and I think I had like a room full of misfits and rejects.
And that's exactly what I would expect.
Yeah.
They're like laughing and kind of doing a little wipe. It's super familiar, which is how I feel when I listen to your stuff. So let's start here. I've told my listeners a little bit about who you are if they don't already know. Because you're everywhere right now, which is fun. But I was telling them in the intro, it's kind of tough to understand exactly what it is you do without seeing it, because you've just got a unique thing that you do and the way that you do it. I'd love if you wouldn't just mind for 1 second, would you roll it back just for a minute and tell my crew a little bit about your background, because it matters. So much so to your material and your brand of humor. So like, where did you grow up and what was your what was that like? And then obviously in just real, in like obvious language that informed the comedy that you did today. So I just kind of like to hear you expand on a little bit, because I don't know if you know this, but my community is also largely the misfit toys that came out of super conservative, traditional, fundamentalist religious spaces. And so we're all also kind of thrashing around, sorting out our adult lives. Anyway, that was a lot. I threw it all at you. Do your best. Take whatever I just said and try to give some sort of answers.
I grew up in a really small town in Indiana, and people are often surprised to hear that my parents were not churchgoers. I did it to myself. Like there was in my community, there was really nothing to do except for sit at Denny's all night or go to church. And so I went to church, and the one that I went to, they really turned it into like a party for teenagers. Like there was constantly, like, the gym had a band in it and pizza and multiple times a week. So that was my whole life, like all through college. And I was into it. I was really, really, really into it. And I guess like the conflict arose when in my teenage years, I started realizing that I'm gay. I couldn't let those words even pass through my head, but I knew that something was stirring, And so that kind of gave birth to a lot of really awkward moments of me trying to like fit into this world when I didn't. So I think that's probably, at the time, it's really tragic, but 30 years later, I look back on it with a lot of like, that was really absurd, and I think that's where I guess like the birth of my comedy material comes from, just that like, it was awful in the moment, but looking back, it's like, that was so ridiculous. I put myself through so many ridiculous scenarios,
Right. Voluntarily.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. First of all, your whole bit, I guffawed about your whole bit about Carmen and the devil in the fight with the Jesus. I know that. We also had that performance, that dramatic performance done like at our youth camp, and we all just cried because Jesus won. Jesus kicked the devil's ass. So it's very emotional. Okay, I have so many questions about this. This is interesting because I'm curious what your parents thought of young fundamentalist Kevin, who just decided that he was going to take this super religious conservative path when that wasn't there. It's like, what was their response to you? Because there's so many rules in that sort of evangelical fundamentalist adolescence, and I don't know, did they find you amusing? Were they alarmed?
I think it was a little bit of a different era. My high school years were 1988 to 1992.
You and I are the exact same age.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So in that time period, I think anything religious was sort of seen as good, and so I think my parents, they didn't ask a lot of questions, but they knew I was going to church and they thought that was a good thing. They thought it kept me out of trouble. I was focusing on positive things, and they didn't know the sort of silent torment I was putting myself through. They had no idea until years later.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the time they thought it was good.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's better than like drugging and boozing.
Mm-hmm,
so
for sure.
yeah, like for that it was seen as kind of a good influence probably on our age group. And in some ways it was, and in other ways it was emotionally crippling.
Yes.
So
more than one thing can be true at once. Yes.
That's right. You take the good with the bad. I wonder if we could dip back for just 1 second, because of course you mentioned knowing at that age, of course, deeply internalized that you were gay and not knowing, of course, what to do with that. I don't know about I grew up in the exact same environment in Kansas. So I was kind of your cousin there in the Midwest. I don't know about your church. We didn't talk about gay kids or gay people. It was so far gone a conclusion that there was nothing to say. That it wasn't even like, let's wrestle with this or, so now, of course, with crystal clear hindsight, I can look back and see, oh my God, the poor gay kids in our youth group. I mean, now, exactly, I can pick them. But that was not a safe environment to be a gay 16-year-old boy in at all. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear you just talk about that a little bit. I mean, now you look back with adult eyes and it's different, but wow.
Yeah, I think people, in some ways, I think it might be harder for gay kids today because it's on everyone's mind now. And you're right. It really
you were under the radar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so there were lots of things that I picked up on that probably nobody else was. Like, I remember occasionally the pastor giving a sermon on the parts of the Bible where like these crazy perverted people, like we don't know them, but they're out there, and so, yes, you're right. I was sort of flying under the radar, but I picked up every little thing like that. And started sort of privately searching, like, I've got to fix this. Like, how do I get out of this? And there were like books you could order at the bookstore. I read
your bit on that is hysterical.
Yeah. I read every single one of them.
Of course you did.
Just trying to figure out like, how do I fix this? How do I, before anyone finds out, but you're right. Yeah. It was a different era. Like, it wasn't on TV. It wasn't on the news.
That's right.
Nobody was talking about that.
They weren't, except, I mean, I don't know how your youth group kids were, but mine, not just the youth group kids, all kids. That was at the time when you used kind of like people used homophobic slurs as insults about every 10th word. So that was just a give. It didn't even, nothing in my brain went, that might be painful for somebody in the room. Like, so maybe we didn't have a lot of overt spiritual conversations around sexuality, at least in that way. Now, we certainly had plenty of conversations around don't have sex. That was clear.
Purity, like save yourself till marriage, all that stuff.
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Extreme. Like, we even got into like, if you're holding hands with someone who you're not going to marry, you're holding hands with someone's future wife or future husband. It's so.
I heard you say that in a bit.
It's
so over the top, and it's so baked into the shame cape that you just cannot. It's so hard to unravel from. If you're straight, for sure, and if you're gay, you have no recourse. I mean, you're double layered all over the place. Like, you have no chance except to hope one of those books will make you ungay. And I'm really sorry they didn't. I hope you got a refund. How not to be gay book didn't actually work. Weird. So I'd love to hear how that unfolded for you. Like, at what point you began to really like reconcile with who you are. It's just who you are. I listened to your bit about holding each other accountable and I died. I was dead. I held so many people accountable. That was what we did for like a hobby, I guess. And so you did not put yourself in a young adult environment that was yet safe. So I'm curious how you began to really become in alignment, like with your own soul, your own body, like your own identity.
I did. So after high school, I hung around my hometown for a couple of years because I wanted to be in the ministry. I wanted to be a youth pastor, of course, and all of my friends started going to uh, all of the Bible colleges. I know someone who went to all of them, and I was sort of deciding, like, am I going to go to, something on the West Coast? Am I going to go to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago? And meanwhile, this is like my darkest period. I was internally in such a panic about the thing that I knew was unstoppable, and I'm trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do? I've got, this is awful. And on a whim, I went up to visit. I was just so desperate and confused. On a whim, I went to visit my friend who was going to, like, a big state school in Indiana. And and he was not a Christian. He was just a friend from high school. And I think when I showed up at his dorm, he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Not really." And he was like, "Do you just want to go to school here?" And I was like, "Yes." And I, like, went to the admissions office and signed. Like, I never left. I just went. And
wow. Are you serious? Oh, man.
Yes. And honestly, that decision probably saved my life. That weird random decision. Because I didn't even want to go to college, but I was like, what am I going to major in? And I picked musical theater because that sounded fun. And that decision was a complete turning point. Because when I walked into that musical theater department, this probably sounds crazy, but I did not even know that, like, normal acting gay people, like, with no conflict, I did not even know that was a possibility.
Yep, I believe you.
Yeah, and so it was just, like, mind shattering. Like,
yeah.
Oh, what?
Like, oh, you're just gonna, like, walk around and get some Burger King?
Yes.
Like a person? Okay.
Right. Nobody's holding you accountable? What?
That's right. Oh, gosh. Oh, bless us. Bless our hearts. So let's talk about comedy then, because in a wonderful twist, you figured out how to spin this into gold. So I'd love to, like, even if it's probably going back for you because you're so naturally funny. Like, when did you know you were funny? When did humor start, like, working its way into your vernacular? Were you that kid? Are you in a funny family? Do you have fun? Are your parents funny? Like, or did that start playing well in class and in school and obviously in youth group, where you started realizing, okay, there is a way to mine this material and turn it into entertainment?
Yeah, I guess I probably am the textbook case of, in school, I figured out that if I made people laugh, everyone would stay off my back. Or, so it was a little bit of a decoy, I think, when I was because kids are cruel. And if they find the thing, they will, they can be relentless. So I was pretty well liked all through high school because I was the class clown. So I made everyone laugh. And I think that sort of protected me when I was younger. And then I never thought, oh, maybe I will do this as a career until much, much later. I had started writing my stories, like, years after the fact. I started writing humorous stories about growing up in that youth group and just funny memories I had. And I went to an open mic coffee shop. This is like 17 years ago, maybe. And I just got up and I just read one of my stories, and I didn't really even know what I was doing, but the room just, like, erupted in, like, loud laughter. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Like, and that was a big turning point, I think, because it was just like some magic in the room. And so from there, I just kept going.
That is, there's something that you don't know about how content lands in a live room until you've done it, until you've heard the response, until you see the body language. And I'm not like doing it sort of in a stand-up open mic format is pretty gutsy. I would not say most people feel like, let me just get up in front of people and try this out. Like you've got something in you, obviously, that is performative and able to sort of know how to communicate and connect. Did you immediately at that point, did you move into the stand-up circuit? Is that what you did? Like playing small places, small rooms? How did you start workshopping your material? Because reading it is one thing, delivering it in a stand-up, there's a lot of ways to do comedy, and you kind of dipped into several. Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I've always been kind of an extreme person. So
That's fair.
If I do
fair self-assessment.
if I do something, I'd probably do it all like over the top all the way. So I very shortly after that, I mean, it was really mind changing for me. So I packed my bags and moved to Los Angeles to pursue stand-up comedy. Pretty shortly, as soon as I sort of was on to that feeling, I was like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do. And I moved to LA and I signed up for a stand-up comedy class. And I lived 4 blocks from the Comedy Store in West Hollywood, and I walked to the Comedy Store almost every night that I wasn't working and just sat in the back and watched people. And this was the era where Whitney Cummings was sort of upcoming. She hadn't made that show yet. So she was on stage every night, like a lot of, faces that we know today. And I just watched their sets over and over and over and over again until there was a little moment where I could get up and try something. But I went all in. I moved to LA and just dove head in, like complete all in.
What were those early years like for you? Because LA is obviously one of the meccas of stand-up comedy. That's a place where people go, obviously, to make it. And so I'm curious, what was the audience response to you early? Because you're still learning. It's one thing to be funny. It is another thing to deliver a really tight 20-minute set. That is a skill, and it is hard. Like, it is so hard. I regularly marvel at stand-ups. The memory it requires, the transitions, the segues, the comedic timing, the pausing. It is hard. To me, it feels way easier to be like a dramatic actor than to be someone who masters comedy. And so did you like bobble and flail a bit, or did this come pretty quickly and pretty naturally?
It was a little bit of both. Definitely the first handful of times I got up at the Comedy Store, people don't laugh in that atmosphere anyway. Like in those,
tough crowd.
Yeah, like all of those like open mics, like no one really laughs. You're just sort of getting through those first painful moments.
Totally. Completely.
Yeah. But simultaneously, I feel like all things considered, I was doing pretty well. And within that first year, I was getting on stage at the Improv, at the Comedy Store, multiple times in that first year.
Yeah. It's awesome.
No, it was hard, but I was also doing pretty well considering I had just started.
Was this about the same time you decided to sort of come out, or was that later?
No, I would say I guess the timeline was in college. I fully came out. Like my college years were years of self-acceptance. Mm-hmm. When I left there, I was fairly whole, and the LA period was after that. So
got it. LA is a good place to be young and fresh and gay.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, that's a wonderful place to figure it all out.
West Hollywood. Yeah, West Hollywood.
Be amongst your people. But for sure, I had to have been, after coming from the Midwest and in the closet and then going to LA out, you were in a completely different world. I can only imagine what that was like in your 20s. But also you did music, right? You were in a band? Yeah. So were you just like, hey, let's also be a musician. I'd like to be also a rock star.
Yeah, I think this is the case for a lot of people. Outside of the trauma stuff, the church is like the birthplace for a lot of performers in music, in whatever it is. Yeah, music is a big one for sure. And that was for me as well. So my formative years were getting on stage and saying things to people, and so it was sort of ingrained in me, music, just sermons. I was giving sermons as a teenager, and so it was just part of me. And when I went out into the world as a young person, I wasn't completely sure how it was going to take shape, but I've been on stage in some format my whole life, thousands and thousands of times, and it all kind of like adds up to something.
Yeah, it does. You're so right. I'm not a performer in the way that you are, but I also grew up, church is just sort of theatrical. It's just a theatrical place, and it's performative, and it's demonstrative, and it's like verbally emotional. And yeah, I learned also how to be in front of people, how to teach. Later, we transitioned that to speak because I'm a girl. So, girls don't preach, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, I think I learned some of my theatrics also in church, where being a demonstrative person is very rewarded.
Yes.
And it's a great place to learn.
Summertime and even the start of the school year, you guys, can mean a season of spending, right? Like vacays and staycays, splurges, parties, celebrations, and then, of course, all the back to school stuff. But are you spending the right way or the responsible way? I know it's boring, but important. So maybe check out Chime. They have an online checking account, tons of benefits, millions of members love them. Like fee-free overdraft up to $200 plus, you guys. You can get paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit and manage your money on the go, like all the time, 24/7. With Chime, you also have access to more than 60,000 fee-free ATMs. That's more than the top 3 national banks combined. You can also pay family and friends super easily through Chime, no matter what bank account they use. And you can cash out your money fee-free. It all basically means more time and money for whatever floats your boat. And of course, with Chime, there are no monthly fees, no minimum balance, no deposit required to become a member. So sign up for Chime today and keep making this summer the best one yet for yourself and certainly for your wallet. Get started at chime.com/forthelove. You guys, that's chime.com/forthelove. Chime is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services and debt card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A. Members FDIC. Eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Access to direct deposits up to 2 days early depends on the timing of the submission of the payment file from the payer. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply. We've been having some conversations over on the socials about the P word. You know the one. Perimenopause. I guess this is a thing now for me, and maybe you're there too. But anyway, a lot of weird things are going on in my body right now. And one common issue that every one of us in this season of life seems to have trouble with is sleep. It's like that elusive thing we're chasing and we can't seem to catch. But here's the thing. I've hacked it. Thanks to Focal. I really have. I'm shook by how much this has helped my sleep situation. It's literally changed my sleep game. I started with their drops, and right now I've been loving their full spectrum sleep gummies. I take them every night. They help me fall asleep, and more importantly for me, they help me stay asleep. Because in the before times, I'd catch a thought at 3 a.m., and then that was it. My brain was like, let's go. So even if you're not in perimenopause, but your sleep is just off for a million other reasons, give them a go. I've got a code for you if you want to try them out. Use code FORTHELOVE to get 20% off at focal.com. So let me spell that for you. It's FOCL.com, okay? And your code is FORTHELOVE for 20% off, because sleep is priceless, y'all. Thank me later.
I would love to hear you talk about one of your moments. Maybe it's one specific moment, but it's probably over a host, but one of the moments where you just went, this is a big success. Like, this is a big win. I am not just like scrapping it out anymore or just sort of clawing my way through, but I'm good at this and people are responding and I'm succeeding, or this is like a big windfall or a big win. Because those moments tend to happen where all of a sudden you're one thing and then you're something bigger.
My story, people often say that it inspires them, because I am about to turn 50, and it has been a lifelong journey to get here. And, had you told 18-year-old Kevin, hey, it's going to work, but like 30 years from now,
Totally.
I don't know what I would have done had I known that.
Yeah.
I went out I went on the road after that LA period for a long time. I did a lot of, they're called fringe festivals. I don't know if you've heard of that before. They're like these sort of experimental theater comedy festivals. And there's a circuit of them. And I did that for about 5 years. And in that period, I had lots of successes in that world. Like I had little sold out runs in Indianapolis or whatever. Or like I'd get a little blurb in the paper that was like, Kevin Thornton's show is a must see. But also, it was so hard. I was so broke. I was like barely making it to the next festival. And, as I sort of reached the end of my 30s, I was like, what am I doing to myself? Like, is this what I want? Like, it's so much work and I'm not making any money. And is this worth it? And I was asking all those like big life questions. And I got to some sort of conclusion of, you know what? I'm not especially happy. And I think I want to live differently. And I actually moved to Nashville and opened a photo studio and really started focusing my creative energy into different places. And I, as a completely side tangent, I love photography, and it kind of takes a different artistic part of me. Someday I want to do a gallery show or a book, or that's like a long term, just for me, artistic vision. And that's sort of the space I was in for most of my late 30s, early 40s. And when the pandemic came along, it's when I just sort of out of boredom, I took some of my stories and put them on TikTok with the just completely random choice to sing them through that audio filter.
It's so original. It's so dumb and funny.
It's so I think that is exactly what drew me to it, because in that it's like, okay, I only get 60 seconds. I don't know. I found that filter. I'm like, it might be funny if I sang this traumatic story. I put almost no thought into it at all. And that's the thing that clicked.
That's where I found you.
Yeah. And like, that was early pandemic. Like within a couple of months, I had like several videos that had millions of views. And I was like, what is happening? I don't know, but I'm going to keep going. And, and it just changed everything. It like all these new doors just blasted open, and I signed with an agency and they were like, do you want to do live comedy again? And I was like, in the beginning, I was like, I'm not sure. Cause last time I was kind of not super happy and I was so burned out. And I was like, I don't want to do that again. But I was like, let's give it a try. And we did. And it's been the most wild dream come true the last couple of years. I'm having the time of my life. Like all these years of preparation are suddenly here. I'm ready. I was ready for this moment, but I didn't see it coming. But now that it's happened, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. This was the lifelong path.
That's right.
I just didn't know how long it was.
Totally. And it's so fun to watch, and then to realize that you're ready to step right into it. You've got all the muscle memory for it. You've actually got the experience, and you learned it the hard way, just scrabbling it out. And so you're not a flash in the pan. You're not like an overnight success. Even though that may be what it looks like to all of a sudden rock it up, but it's just not true at all. You've got everything in you to succeed, and you are. And so now you're on the road, like you're doing the thing. You're doing the whole tour comic thing, right? Like, what does that look like for you now? Did you kind of chart your own? Did you sort of figure out how you wanted this to look? Or are you just like, give me a stage and give me a microphone?
Yeah, no, it was so I signed with an agency sort of early in the early TikTok experience. And it was sort of an experiment at first, but once I realized I'm really enjoying it and it's going well, I was like, let's go all in on the clubs. I'm having a great time. So I'm touring the biggest comedy clubs in the world, and often selling out. Like I went to Europe a few months ago, and the entire European tour sold out before I even got there. It's like when I even think about it now, I'm like, what? Yeah, but like, so yeah, I'm on tour all over the world doing improvs and funny bones and, the comedy club thing. I did about 80 cities this year. I think I'm going to do probably more in 2024. At the moment, I'm on permanent tour and I'm loving it.
Awesome. I wonder if did you worry or were you suspicious at all if some of your fundy material would play like at this level, kind of out in the real world, like outside of this strange bubble in which it was incubated. And now it's out with normals who come to a comedy club. And yet it continues to be weirdly resonant. And I wonder, when I think about those of us who grew up in like really religious environments in the 80s and 90s, it did have a lot of slivers to the pie chart. I mean, I don't know what your particular background was. Mine was Southern Baptist, but I can throw a rock and hit the Catholic kids who grew up with a lot of the same guilt, and some of the like Jewish kids over here, and like the Presbyterians. There's so many of us that even though our upbringings maybe were in different zip codes, we have some real similar through lines. And so did you just think, I'm going to have to change material? I don't know if this religious stuff's going to play, but then realize, this is working everywhere? What was that like?
Yeah, I especially faced that when I went to Europe. I was like, are they going to understand this?
Totally.
They did. It's a weirdly unfortunate, maybe, common experience, even still. And a good example of that is when I go to Salt Lake City. That crowd is entirely Mormon, but they get it.
They get it. Yeah.
The essence is the same.
You're right. That's what it is. The essence is the same of just sort of behavioral control. A lot of us had that experience one way or another. I have a ton of Mormons in my community too. And they're just like, look, same. I'm like, oh, okay. All right, great. Here we all are. How fun. So I'm so excited for you and I love watching you succeed. And I think I love it also personally because we're identical ages. I also turned 50 in this next year, graduated 92. And I love seeing our lives come to an interesting fruition at our age, that sometimes it takes this long to step into what we're literally kind of meant for and good at, and that we're going to succeed and it's not too late for us. And all the possibility doesn't belong to the young. And so it's really, really fun to watch you do this.
I was chatting with my book clubbers just the other day in one of our Zoom book talks about the fact that we've been reading together, you guys, for more than 4 years. It's crazy. We have read tons of incredible, impactful, thought-provoking, fun books during that time in the Jen Hatmaker Book Club. And this upcoming season is going to be amazing too. I actually can't wait to get into the lineup of books we have planned. And if you weren't reading with us, let's fix that. When you're a book club member, not only do you get a book box delivered to your doorstep every month with the book, of course, and a special gift and love notes for me. It's so fun. But we also have live chats on Zoom in our private group. Plus, it's really the best corner of the internet over there. I mean, like, sure, we talk about books every month, of course, but also about life. People are making lifelong friends there and finding connection with others right in their towns, getting together with their local chapters. It's amazing. When you're in book club, you guys get a whole bunch of digital resources like discussion guides and custom content and music playlists from our authors, which are our favorite. So just head over to jenhatmakerbookclub.com to sign up. Start reading with us and making book friends. So you guys, we want you in. It's jenhatmakerbookclub.com.
I'm curious as I kind of wrap it up here with you, what you'd love to do. Like, now that you know, oh shit, the world's my oyster. Like you have possibility now in front of you that you didn't have before. and all this incredible notoriety now, and people know you and they're following you and they love you. And so that creates really exciting potential. And so I'd love to know, like, as you look ahead, let's just say the next 5 or 10 years, do you have any big rocks in the river that you'd love to drop in and see how they go?
You know what I've discovered? And I love that I can say this. I am so in love with what I'm doing right now. I love walking out on stage every night in a comedy club and saying things that resonate and making people laugh. And this is truthful. If nothing else happens, I am good. I could do this for the rest of my life. I'm so happy with what's happening. It's not to say I won't welcome other opportunities, but in a lot of ways, I feel like I've arrived, and it's like, God, if this is it, I'm good. I love it. But I think I would like it if it were just this, but bigger, I guess. I recorded my first comedy special, and that's going to come out on TV sometime this fall. And I think that'll maybe up the game a little bit, but it really all just looks like what I'm currently doing, just bigger and maybe more permanent, Yeah, I'm also, I signed with a literary agency, so I'm writing a book. I think that could be a nice, I had to write 50 pages for my proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I was like, oh, writing a book is going to be very, very, very hard.
Oh my gosh. Right. When anybody ever asks me, I've written so many books, and they're just like, do you think I could be a writer? I'm like, is there anything else you can do?
Yes.
Like, do you have any other skills?
I've already learned this, yes, firsthand. So I'm excited about it. And it's the story I'm telling is my high school years and self-acceptance.
Yeah.
Like that's the theme of
Love.
the book. And so I want it to be funny, but I also want it to be really moving and resonant. Yeah. But I'm working on that. I mean, that's a long process. That probably won't hit shelves until 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly. But by the time it comes out, you will not remember what you wrote. Right. You will have to recount it in 7 billion interviews, but you'll be like, I don't know, some stuff about being gay, young. I can't remember. Just read it.
The thing I'm learning is writing my stories for stage. It's quick and it's to the point very fast.
Right. They're tight. Mm-hmm.
Yes. For this, it's the opposite. And it's like, okay, I've got to settle my brain and sink into this space where I'm going to fall in love with this story, and I'm not in a rush to get it out. It's just a different energy for sure.
Totally. Absolutely. But I bet you end up loving it. And I have always found the process of writing long form therapeutic and cathartic. And it forces you to go really deeply inward and really, really spend some time with your memory in a way that it's like a discovery process, frankly. You think you know it all until you do this type of project. And then I generally will go to my siblings or my parents and I'm like, what do you remember about this? And all this fresh stuff comes to light that I had forgotten or that just adds color to the story. And I'm always grateful for it. I never know if it's going to serve the reader, but it eventually serves the writer. And so I hope that you love this process, and it's exciting to watch. Okay. Before I ask you the very last question, can you just tell my community, this is where to find you, this is where to follow you, who wants to come see you live? How do they find that out? Where's your tour schedule, all of it?
Yeah, my central hub is my website, of course, and that's just kevinjamesthornton.com. But that has all of my show dates, everything that I'm up to. It even has my photography on it. If I'm all of my stuff that I do is there. Also, I do a podcast that is fairly new. You can find there. It's sort of an on the road, behind the scenes travel journal with me and my opening act on the road in comedy clubs all over the world. It's called This Ends in Paris. And all of that, it's all on my website, kevinjamesthornton.com. And that's my handle on social media too.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, final question. I actually ask all my guests this, whatever the series is. This happens to be a comedy series, but I have a lot. And so I borrowed this question from somebody, from Barbara Brown Taylor. But you can answer this however you want, Kevin. You can answer this dumb. You can answer it true. You can answer it earnest. We get it all. So anyway, this is it. What's saving your life right now?
What's saving my life right now?
Yeah.
What is this an adult show?
Everything belongs on this show. There's no censors. Yeah.
I decided to quit drinking at some point, and not because, I wasn't like wildly out of control or anything. I was very in control, but I just had too many days where I woke up and I'm like, I don't feel good. And especially living on the road like this, it's, and so I'm just sort of like learning, especially at this age. I think this is uniquely a Generation X thing. We grew up with MTV, and everybody was so sexy on MTV, and it was all about young people. We said this earlier, and I think that a lot of us in our age group got this idea that if we weren't on MTV by age 30, we didn't succeed. And like, I'm really learning to this sounds corny, but like value myself at 50. And it's like, I'm not almost finished. I am the best version of myself I ever have been. And the world needs to see it, and hear it. And, and so, little things like just taking better care of myself. Just like, I love my life. I love what's happening. I want this to last for a long time. I want to take care of myself, and I'm 50.
I know. I love the answer, and congratulations on your sobriety. I just had Nate Bargatze on this series, and he also stopped drinking just recently. And it's no joke to do that. That's a big choice. And it's a lifestyle change.
When you're a nightclub performer, like
completely
itself, it's like every single night I'm in a bar. And
exactly.
Yeah. And it's like, and you're in a hotel room by yourself and you're kind of bored. And, it's a very easy path to slide down. There's a reason why so many comedians die in their hotel rooms.
That's right. You're exactly right. Good for you. Good for you. I love that for you. And I'm thrilled about it. And I'm just excited to watch you go. Thank you for being so funny. Thank you for entertaining so many of us and making us laugh. And sometimes I'll see your stuff and I just throw a hand over my face and I just die laughing. It's so familiar and yet so much funnier. And so anyway, I'm thrilled. I will send all my community to all of your sites. If you are ever playing in Austin, I'll be on the front row.
I am. It's coming up and it's soon. I don't know the date. It's very soon. It's at Cap City Comedy.
Of course.
Yeah.
Been there a million times.
It's in like a month or so.
Great. Well, get off of this and I'll go look on your website and I will find out. And I will let you know if I'm going to be there. I'm thrilled. Anyway, thanks for being on the show today. I'm so happy to have met you.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks.
All right, you guys. Okay, if I didn't bully you enough already in this episode to go follow him so you can see and hear what it is Kevin does, do it now. If you go to jenhatmaker.com under the podcast tab, I'll have this whole episode, but I'll have all of Kevin's handles. So his website and his socials, and you can see his tour schedule. And then you'll get a real feel for what it is he does. And he's just delightful. Just in a world that's hard right now and just fraying at so many edges and feels just tight in the chest. Kevin is a breath of fresh air. It's so nice to have people out there who are just spinning what could reasonably be described as hard things and hard spaces where you're not free and you're not safe into just comedy gold. It's refreshing. And so is he. So you can find it all over there. And I'm so happy that you're here for the comedy series. It's funny people are just my favorite people. So more to come. If you haven't already, by the way, subscribed to this podcast, do it. Do it. We sure love our listening community. What an amazing podcast community. Do you know we have over 50 million downloads on this show? 50 million. My brain can't, I just don't even know. That just fries a circuit right in my head. That's you. That's you. And that's all of our subscribers who get this show every week. And so we love showing up in your AirPods So hit that subscribe button if you haven't, wherever you get your podcast. And we sure love you, and we'll see you next week.